Hello. Let me see if we are live. Yeah, I think that we are live. Hi everyone. That's a little bit delayed. Hello. Let me see. Okay. Livestream, Hummingbot MCP, perfect. I have the chat here. So good to be back doing these live streams. Let me open up this a little bit. Hi everyone. Let me see if the chat works. That's me saying hi. So I think that we are live. Perfect. Well, we'll start. I will play a song that I'm working with a friend of mine. But yeah. Well, let me see Discord. Let me see the chat. Okay, yeah, perfect. Well, let's keep the conversation on YouTube. Perfect. Well, just to start, I was playing around. Mike recommended me to check this PancakeSwap. Basically, I found very good results with this pair, very good yield. So yeah, I recommend to play around with it. Well, what we're going to see today is MCP and Hummingbot API. Let me first open like a whiteboard so we can understand a little bit what this is about. Let me create one that is Scalidraw in a new okay. Well, basically, let's talk a little bit about like MCP and all stuff. I will see if I can put music, like background music, non-commercial. Let me see. Okay. Well, if you followed Hummingbot lately, you will know probably that we created this Hummingbot API, right? What this Hummingbot API is about? Basically, we can manage accounts. We can have multiple credentials for each account, right? So all this part of this functionality is available. We have like accounts management. We have a Hummingbot API portfolio tracking. That's another thing that we have from Hummingbot API. We have, let's say, market data. You can get candles, order book, prices, funding rates. Yeah, all these things are like right now available in Hummingbot API. You can also trade. You can also trading. You have some browsers for trading. You can place orders, cancel orders, manage positions, right? So all this stuff is like plus backtesting and more complex things. I'm sorry, one very important thing is deploy, let's call it here, deploy and manage bots, right? So with Hummingbot API right now, you can do all this stuff. That is really cool because if you remember before, Hummingbot was just a CLI. now you can orchestrate and do things on top of the CLI. So before moving on, let's see what it looks like. Let's run it in here. Let me go here to Hummingbot API. Here is Hummingbot API, right? This is the core repo. Usually, when you get started, you usually use the deploy repo. Just to explain the difference of that deploy repo that you probably will say, why I have deploy, why I have Hummingbot API, all that stuff. The Hummingbot API repo has all the code from this fast API, right? So this is, let's say, Hummingbot API. Then we have another repo that is called dashboard. That is this other repo that is in Streamlit. And then we have another one that is deploy that merges these two, like merges the dashboard and Hummingbot API. So that's why we have this deploy repo. So deploy repo contains Hummingbot API and contains dashboard, right? And what we're going to see today is another one that I'm working on that is called Hummingbot MCP. That right now is not integrated in deploy, but you can still use it. In this case, I'm not going to use deploy because I am not going to use the dashboard. Well, probably I can run it, but I will just focus on this Hummingbot API repo. That is probably the most important repo that we will maintain right now. Here appears still called like backend API, but right now we reframe it to Hummingbot API. So what about this repo? If you go to a Docker Compose, you will see that we have the Hummingbot API that uses this official image of Hummingbot API. And we have this MQX that is a broker. This is the service that we use to communicate the bots. It's a protocol called MQTT. You can send messages through a topic, or you can trigger events. So it's like a very good protocol when you are using IoT and all that stuff. Well, the guy that implemented this in Hummingbot, he was like doing a PhD on robotics, and he liked the idea of making that the bots can be connected as nodes. So that's why we ended up having this. I did a huge refactor on this Hummingbot API of the usage of MQTT using the base library Pajo MQTT. And probably I will do a refactor on Hummingbot too, because there are some errors that are not caught in the base library that this guy created called Kialpanagi. But well, overall works. So yeah. How we are using this in the bots right now, what you can do with this protocol, with MQTT. Basically, when the bot starts, if it has connected MQTT, you can send the basic commands of start, stop, status, history. All the commands can be sent through MQTT. And also, the V2 strategies uses this protocol to send updates of the status. So what it means is that every 1 second, it will publish through MQTT the P&L, the current trading volume, all the metrics related to the trading are published through MQTT by the bots. And this Hummingbot API consolidates all the reports from all the bots that you have deployed. So it's like you can have, I don't know, 5 bots running. All of them are going to send the updates through MQTT, and Hummingbot API will consolidate everything and give you the status of those bots. So for that is this service. And then we also have this Postgres database that is where we are storing the orders, the portfolio, all the stuff over time. If you want to check it out, here I have this connection in PyCharm. You can see this. So here you have in the tables available for the database. As you can see, we have account states, that register well, is not running. Let me see, Docker. Well, I can just run it from here and run the MQX2. So here I have running MQX and Postgres. So now if I click here again, I can see it. So as you can see, these account states will have a record of the timestamp, master account, and connector name for each of the records and with an ID. And in the token states, we'll give you the state of each token, the units, the price, because we collect the price too, and the value in USD. Why this is important or why this is useful for you? Because you can define a frequency that say 5 minutes, and for all the accounts that you have connected, every 5 minutes, we're going to get all your units, the current prices, and tell you this is the amount in US dollars that you have of each of the tokens. And this applies if you have, I don't know, 20 accounts, it will get the 20 accounts. Soon, probably next week, we're going to start doing the same to integrate it with the gateway too. So now you can also manage the DEX, your DEX portfolio here too. But well, overall, it's a solution for anyone that is into algo trading or in crypto to have control of how much money do I have, what's the current value, all that stuff. Then we have the trades. This is only the trades for trades executed via the API. In the future, what I would like to do is that once you connect your keys, automatically I will download all the past trades of your accounts since inception or since the API gives me the data. So in that sense, is that you can see the evolution of the portfolio very easily, or the trades that you executed in a single place. Plus, it will be very good for the ones that are trying to do taxes to understand like what was the actual real trading activity. If there is a framework in place with the trades, you can just generate a tax report probably. So I think that this will be useful more for institutional or for people that is struggling understanding how to report the taxes if they report. Then we have the orders table also. If there are errors, we are also logging the errors. For example, this one says accounts has insufficient balance for the requested action. So it's cool because if you are trying to run an order, execute an order, whatever, you have that. Well, funding payments, and this bot runs. This bot runs is really interesting because we keep track when you deploy a bot. We are going to keep track of when you started the bot, and at the end, we are going to tell you what was the last state. That basically, this is the deployment config, and this is the last performance. So basically, in the last performance, you can see like the logs, the PNL, the whatever. It's like you have all the information before you stop the bot. What was the last state? So this is really cool when trying to manage multiple bots and deployments, all that stuff. So basically, just to summarize, this API will give you more like a professional grade usage of the system, where you can manage multiple accounts, when you can deploy different strategies in the same server, like all that stuff. All for free, all open source. So this is my cat trying to get attention. So now it's time to run it. Let's run the API. You can run it from Docker or you can run it from source. I'll run it from source now. So if we want to debug something, we can debug it. I can show you how to debug. And says that it's running in the you should start a little bit, and then it should run in the. You see it says Hummingbot API version status running, and if you go to the docs, we can see the actual endpoints that you have available. You can play around with it is very interesting, all the things that you can do. Actually, there is a very good YouTube series that I created where I explain like the routers and all that stuff. And in that series, well, it's here. I don't know if it's featured or not. Let me see. In this Hummingbot. Well, it's not featured. It's here. This Hummingbot API, like at the end, that is like code examples. I even created like how to send reports through Telegram using like the library and all the stuff. So well, it's very convenient and very easy to use. There is this library, Hummingbot API client. This library that you just install with pip install like this. Pip install Hummingbot API client and see how easy is like client that portfolio get state, client that connectors, list connectors. Well, it's like very oriented to how these routers are created too, right? So well, up to this is all the presentation about what is Hummingbot API, why we created, all that stuff. What I'm going to present now is ways to interact with this API, because once we have the API, we can either write a program to deploy bots automatically. For example, well, in the example of this YouTube in series, welcome everyone. Let me show you this one. That is the last one. Last example is in this one, I show how to deploy automatically 2 grids. So well, if you want to check it out, that will be one way of deploying, right? So coming back to this is like, let's call it like ways to interact with this Hummingbot API. We can have either writing a script that runs forever and interacts with the API using Hummingbot API client. That will be like one way. The other way will be using dashboard. That, let me start it so you can see it. It will be here. So running the dashboard will let us, this part is mocked, so it's not an actual thing. If someone wants to add something, it's like a mock-up of what you can like actually build. But basically here in the dashboard you can see if you have instances running, if you wanna deploy an instance, how to deploy it. Like you can pick, I want this config, I want to put the name, this name to the bot and deploy it, and it will run. You can manage the credentials here. Well, this is sometimes happen, you guys just need to refresh it. It's because it's stream late. You can create the account, like, I don't know, create new account, test2. I have this test2 account. Now I want to add a credential to this test2 account for the connector, whatever. So, well, this interface is one interface that you can use to interact with the bot. You can get the portfolio, the trading. Well, here you can do trading too. This is really cool. Before it wasn't possible to trade with Hummingbot. Now you can trade with Hummingbot. That's like without running actually the application. This uses the routes of trading, right? But here you can pick, I wanna trade from the master account on this exchange. It will get the candles, it will get the order book, and you can place orders or do whatever you want. You also get the funding rate if it's a perpetual connector. And well, basically this can be useful for rebalance your account, all that stuff. And here at the end you have the account balance, the positions that you have open, if you have some, the active orders, the order history. Well, you have a bunch of this stuff to review. These archive bots shows like the bots that you run in the past, if they have database or not. This part probably is not working very well, but well, if someone wants to fix it, you can run it. It shows the P&L of the total bots. This is something that we need to work on. And also you have like some strategy, some parts to generate configs for the strategies. For example, Grid Strike is a strategy that I always recommend to start with because it's a simple grid, but you get the sense of how to use a tool like Hummingbot that lets you create any strategy in a long run, because here you are not going to take too much risk. You're going to put how much money you want to spend on the grid and what is the config of the grid, and the bot will just start as a simple grid strategy. Anyone knows how a grid works, so it's very simple to get started. So I will recommend to start with this, and then we'll continue with others, right? But well, this by default, this page will load for you the last 30 days on an interval of 30 minutes based on the maximums and minimums. The percentiles will determine the limits of the grid. For example, here's suggesting a long grid for WorldCoin. So basically with this configuration, you can pick or you can modify, for example, end price 1.5, let's say that we want to put it. So you can modify the range that you want to place a grid. You just put the number, the config that you want, you upload it, and then it's ready to deploy here, right? So that is a basic usage of the API through the dashboard. As Grid Strike, you have other strategies like, I don't know, MACD and Bollinger. This is a directional strategy. You have a bunch of these strategies, so you can pick the one that you like and experiment with this, right? But today, what I'm going to show you is this MCP stuff. That is basically what you will probably are looking for to understand, to see what it is, all that stuff. So the last thing will be using AI agent that has access to Hummingbot MCP. The first thing I would like to read in the chat, if someone knows, how do you think, there is some delay, so I will continue talking, but just I would like to see you writing on the chat. How do you think that the MCP works with an agent? Like what is actually giving the MCP to an AI model to use? Like what's the benefit of defining this MCP layer for someone that wants to deploy or develop an AI application? I'm reading the chat, so feel free to post whatever you want, and then when I will explain what I think. In the meanwhile, let me go to the MCP repo. MCP is this one. This is one that we work together. Let me go. You take out main. Git pull. You don't bloat your context. Well, depending how you look at it, but yeah. Well, can you explain what MCP is? Yeah, I will do it. Well, basically, it's like when an AI agent, like if you go to the history of this stuff, how the AI agents or all this fever of LLMs that started a few years ago, we recognized that the LLMs were really good and they could like do a lot of work for us, right? But the problem is like how structured is the work that they are doing, because if they just reply as a normal person and I want to use that output to do something else, it will be a little bit complex, right? So a few things like structured outputs. So the output is in a JSON format and the LLM has to has to return the color, the whatever and whatever in that format, starts helping the applications to grow, because you can structure the applications much more with structured outputs, right? And then the concept of tools appeared. That is that, okay, if the LLM can structure outputs, it will be able to structure the inputs that a function needs to run, right? So what we started doing was we started creating functions that we call tools, and those tools basically in the dot strings, like depending on the framework that you were using, if you were using LangGraph or you were using Pydantic AI or Llama Index, depending on the framework that you were using, you have a way to define a tool, and basically the program at the end will put in the prompt of the agent, you have access to use this tool. These are the arguments, and this argument has this description. This argument has this description. If you need to use it, you can use it, right? So the LLM has the function always is, or how it works is, it receives text. The text goes to tokens through an embedding model. The tokens go through the LLM and then outputs tokens, and then an embedding model returns the text back, right? So in that text that was entering was this part that says, these are the tools that you can use, and this is how you use them, right? So the LLM, instead of replying just a simple output in text, maybe was replying, use this tool with these arguments. And then once the tool is used, the tool comes with the output back to the LLM, and it can continue to do things. That is what the first agentic behavior, we start seeing that agentic behavior, right? So the LLM now can say, I have this access to use these tools based on what the user is asking. I will use them and have a better context to work on and solve the problem that the user has, right? Well, that was like the state of the art of the tools. Like, I don't know, 1.5 years before, you can define the tools in that way, right? What was the problem of that? It ended up becoming like a little bit like a mess, because you write a program and you have the functions in your program that maybe you are reusing in another agent, and then, well, it was not so structured. Then Anthropic came and says, okay, this is MCP, Model Context Protocol, right? So this is what is MCP. Well, MCP model. This is MCP, right? So basically what they did was knowing that the tools were something really important, and they also have other things like resources, well, and other stuff that we are not going to talk about, but there are other things. They set it up as standard to present this information to the LLMs. So that's why it's not something new. The MCP is like we are allowing the LLMs understand how to use tools that before they also can use tools, but we are telling them how to use it in a structured way. That is very cool, because all the ecosystem will evolve using this standard way, and probably the LLMs are going to get better and better to understand the tools in this specific way. So and also this was for me like a very big improvement on the LLM era, because all the biggest companies start developing their own MCPs. So if you want to use Notion, now you can use the Notion MCP, and your LLM will be able to use Notion very easily. So, and as that, a lot of things, like you can use Notion, you can use Google Sheets, you can use even the browser, you can use Hummingbot, well, a bunch of stuff. But basically, as well as SU is saying, it's like an API, yeah. It's like an API, but the main difference is that you don't use it as an API. Instead, it exposes to an LLM the functionalities that it has, so the LLM can call it easily. So that's basically what we're going to see now. So for Hummingbot MCP, if you go here, it's very straightforward. We have this Hummingbot client that basically uses the Hummingbot API client, and here's where we have the server. In this case, I did a little bit of freestyle in terms of the tools that you can use, and basically I did a little bit like progressive disclosure of the things that it has. So for example, when setting up App Connect, because here I have like two paths. One path will be, I can just give you the raw functionality of add a credential, or I can give you the functionality to set up a connector that might have multiple steps. I test the two things. I test using resources too. I ended up figuring out that this setup for me was the best one that I can do, because the LLM was like really understanding what I need, helping me through the process. So if you want to check it out, the code is public. It's in Hummingbot/MCP. But what we're going to do now is to use it so you can see how it really works. Well, all that stuff. So to set it up, the easiest way is to use like a Docker, because you don't need to clone the repository. You don't need to clone anything. You just need to add this, and it will basically clone a Docker image that has this MCP, and will run it. So it's like very straightforward. You don't need to clone anything, nothing. Just add this part and we work with Docker directly. And if you want to test it from source, because you want to, if you want to have more control or modify some things, you will need to add this part to the but pointing to you need to have UB installed, and you need to point to the repo where the MCP is. So let's configure this right now. So I will show you how to do the configuration. I have already configured, but let's do it again. And so we can see how we can actually use it, right? So in this case, I'm using Claude Code. You can set it up with Gemini CLI if you want. That Gemini CLI is free and also supports MCP. So whatever you want to use is okay. There is no problem from that. But yeah, it's like my recommendation always use Docker. Is you don't need to manage any like dependency. You need to install anything. Just having Docker, it will work as it is, just with one. Memento says you can use Pixie Run Manifest. I don't know that Memento. I didn't use it yet. But well, then you can tell me how it is. So well, I will open a terminal and I will run. We need to modify this. Oh, sorry. I'll put this here. So basically, what we need to do here is to go and modify this Claude.json. I'm looking for MCP servers. So as you can see, this is the MCP server. And I think that is the same code. So if we check it out, this code that says MCP servers is what we need to copy on here. That is basically the same stuff. Okay. So well, this is what we need to have in order to have it configured. What you can do is to copy the one from Docker, and we also work like in that case. So if we go now to the terminal and we run like Claude, and then I run MCP, you will see that says MCP Hummingbot connected. So if you enter, you can see the details and you can see all the tools that we have like available, right? So all these tools are available for the bot to use, and this is what was the information that the AI has to use it, right? So for example, let's say that I will say I want to set up a connector. If I just say that, I would expect that this setup connector is used, and this is really interesting because if you don't pass any parameter, it will be like, okay, the user is trying to set up a connector, but I don't know which is the one. So I will list all the available connectors and see that it says the available exchange are these, and these are the current accounts that you have and the keys that you have connected already, right? So if I say I want to connect to Hyperliquid Perpetual, let's say, right? In case that I am expressing that I would like to connect to Hyperliquid Perpetual, it will tell me, okay, this is the information that you need to actually connect to Hyperliquid Perpetual. You see? It says you need to pass your API key, your API secret, and tell me if you want to use a vault or not. So it's really cool because you can see how the MCP understands what you are trying to, well, the AI understands what you are trying to do, and based on that, it will call this function with the necessary arguments to make it work. So that is for setup connector. Other things that you can do is, for example, tell me what's my balance in Binance Perpetual, let's say. In the meanwhile, let me go here so we can open the account, because we're going to do a few things. You see, it says your Binance Perpetual balance is, wait, wait. You see, it says 17 point, nice move. It says 17.45, and here the MCP says the same thing. Your portfolio is this, okay. So what are other things that I can do? I can say, okay, what's the current price of Sol, BTC, ETH, and XRP? You see, it's using the MCP. So the main difference is that now the agent, instead of understanding or seeing this information through third party or through other sources, is able to understand, okay, Hummingbot can provide this data for me. How can I use this data or use the tools, or if the user is asking me this, I can just use the tools to do that stuff. So as you can see, it's very, very straightforward. I can say, what about the funding rates? If I ask for the funding rates, it can provide the funding rates? Yes. It will call the three tools of getting the funding rate and giving that information back to me. So, well, I would like to read in the chat, like, what are the ideas that you have about this? Like, what features would you like to see? Or ask me, can you do this or can you do that, to understand like what MCP, Hummingbot MCP is available of. But yeah, as you can see here, I'm asking, this is the funding rates of Binance Perpetual, and I can say compare it with OKX Perpetual and Hyperliquid Perpetual. Note that the pairs in Hyperliquid, I think the Hyperliquid are quoted in USD. Yeah, pump USD are BTC USD instead of USDT. Maybe these are things that we can add to the system prompt later on, but well, basically it has all this data. Well, seems like for OKX is failing. There has to be an error in the OKX perpetual connector, but Hyperliquid was able to get the funding rates. So yeah, basically it can. So Hyperliquid has lower funding, whatever. So now let's see if we can open a trade, right? So I would say, can you long? Let me see what tokens are here. Sapien. Let's see Sapien. Oh, let's short the Sapien. Can you short Sapien USDT for what's the leverage? 20x. I will say, can you set up the leverage for Sapien USDT in 50x and then short it for 50 USD? Let's see what he's doing. So see the leverage right now is 20. So he will say, okay, I have these to-dos. I will set the leverage to 50, and then I will place a $50 short on Sapien USDT. So set the leverage. It will be try to call the tool. Let's see. Get account, position mode, set to 50. Perfect. We can see it in 50 now. So everything okay. And then it will try to place a $50 short. So let's see if it's opening the $50 short. That the only bad thing about this is that as it's using Claude in the background, all the wait time is the time that takes from Claude to give me the answer of whatever you would like to do basically. But as you can see, it places a short for me. It's like I just give the instruction and he did it to me. It's nice. Mike is asking, can find arbitrage opportunities? Let's see. I would say, can you compare the price of BRL of USDT BRL between Binance and OKX? Is a Brazilian real. An OKX. Use the order book query because it has access to the order book. So as it has access to the order book, it can check the order book. You see, it's getting the order book of Binance. It gets the order book of OKX, and it will match and see if there is any arbitrage opportunity. Probably, if you want to do arbitrage, you are not going to use probably AI for this, unless you are really unstructured and you don't want to code everything. But these are things that you can code and will be more efficient if you code it. But the good news are it can find the arbitrage. It can have access to the order book. It can do a lot of things for you. So yeah. And also, can you check BBRL RLUSD on XRPL and compare it to? Let me see if we can get the data from the blockchain. Well, it's not in the market list from my Hummingbot API, so it's not able to get it. But this is because I would say, okay, no problem. Now let's say compare XRP USDT on Binance. OKX and XRP RLUSD on XRPL, and it will be able to do it. Well, Linux here is asking a very, very good question, that is, we can use PMM or other strategies for highly liquid tokens, but can we use MCP for less liquid tokens? What you're saying is perfect, Linux, because you can use MCP for everything actually. Why? Because for normal trades or rebalance of the accounts, all that stuff, you can just use the trade functionality of MCP. Okay, so that would be from a good improvement from before. Now you can say, what's my portfolio in XRPL? Based on the portfolio, you can say rebalance the portfolio in this way, and the AI will do all the work for you. Okay, so that will be like more like the manual or the simplest rebalancing stuff or trading stuff that you can do. But at the same time, you can also ask the AI to configure a strategy for you. So, and then you can deploy a strategy. That is what we are going to do right now. We are going to deploy a strategy. So as you can see here, I'm saying my portfolio is this amount, this XRP and this RLUSD. So now I can say, okay, rebalance it to have 50-50. So I would hope that it will do it for me and it will work. I never tried on XRPL. I don't know if there is anything custom with the connector, but it should work. So, well, and the other question that you were saying is, after the refresh time, the PMM cancels and replaces the orders, but in an order book with very little liquidity, new orders end up too high or too low. How can we solve this issue? In case that you are trading on liquid tokens, I don't know why your orders are going to be too high or too low. That depends a lot on the strategy that you coded. So depending on how you code the strategy is how it's going to work. So maybe you're using the B1 of the PMM strategy that is more like a box strategy. The B2 framework lets you pick a different oracle. For example, if you're trading on BTC USDT on an exchange that does not have liquidity, you can use the price of Binance, for example, to place the liquidity around the Binance price on the other exchange. But will depend a lot on the type of market that you want. And you can always use a different source of information. For example, the market of BBRL, RLUSD in XRPL is very illiquid. So if you try to use that mid price to place liquidity, it will be a shit. So you probably want to use the price of Forex exchange or the price of Binance or whatever. So in that case, it will be a solution. But if you are placing a very high liquid tokens, I think that there might be a room for creating a kind of agentic strategy where you define the rules of how to provide liquidity, and based on the orders that has available and based on other things, you can ask him to place orders and cancel orders and replace and all that stuff. So that can be an option. We can probably try that next week if you want, in the next live stream. We can do more using the MCP in an actual agent that takes decisions and places orders automatically, and we can let it run. But well, for now we are just seeing how you can use the MCP to do some stuff. So well, it's taking a little bit of time calculating this. The bad thing of this, as I mentioned always, depending on the plan that you have, it will take more or less time, or the LLM that you're using will also take more or less time. But yeah, I think that what will be nice for next week will be to try to write it with a local LLM and see if we can, with a local LLM, we can run this type of a strategy. Let's say here, let me say continue. sometimes Claude gets bugged and yeah. Well, let's see. No, yeah, XRPL has issues when connecting, but well, no problem. Well, so here we have this order. Now we can say what are my active positions. What local LLM uses chest? Actually, I don't know yet. I will need to do some research, but here in LM Studio, we can try a different ones. I think the QN is probably one of the best that we can try. But well, we can try like next week. We can try to run a program with all this stuff. Another option will be to use like Google to use Gemini, because Gemini, as far as I know, it has like a very good pricing model, so it's cheap to use it. And I think that in this stage of AI, using directly a local model will be a little bit naive to start, because we can use like a pro model to collect data and then probably fine-tune a local model based on all the data that we collected from a pro model, because you don't want to struggle with a local LLM before using a pro LLM. So well, that would be probably what I will do. But next week we can do it like together. We can play around with a local LLM and see actually how it works. But well, we are as you can see, I can also get the position. I have this Sapien USDT short with this size, the entry price, the leverage, the PNL. I can always say to this, can you increase the short by 50 USD? It will try to increase the short. So yeah, this is just to show you like how we can. You see now I have $100 of short. So this is how, just to show you like how we can create this stuff. Well, the next thing that this is for me one of the most important things, or one of the most useful stuff that we're going to have with MCP, is when creating and configuring strategies, right? I created one tool that helps you like discover or explore the strategy and understand what parameters it has available to use. So let's use it. For example, I would say I would like to understand how grid strike works. Okay, so I wasn't specific about that, but as you can see, it is saying explore controllers, action list, controller type, market making. This is a mistake because the controller type of grid is a generic one. So as you can see, it didn't find the grid strike in market making, it didn't find it in directional trading, it found it in the generic one. So as you can see, it says explore controllers, describe, controller name, grid strike. What is the output of this is the full code. So here the LLM is receiving the full code of the controller, and then is giving us like an output says grid strike is an advanced grid trading strategy that places order at specific price levels within a defined range, has a price range, a size selection, the number of grid levels, it has a start price, end price, limit price, the total amount in quote, the mean order amount in quote, the leverage, the maximum open orders that you are going to have at the same time, the mean spread between orders, and stuff. So for example, if you want to understand something special, it's like, okay, how activation, how many grids this strategy will create, just to understand a little bit about the controller, right? how many grids you will create. I don't know. You can ask questions about the code, so it can explain you what it's actually doing. 200 levels. Well, we'll do all this explanation. So now let's say, okay, let's say that I would like to create a config for. Let's continue use the Sapien for Sapien USDT. What values do you recommend? I would like to get the 1 minute candles of the last how much time of the last day, and use them to set up the grid. So basically with this instruction, what it's going to do is to get the candles from, you see, it says I will get the candles of 1 minute for the last day, then I will analyze the price range and volatility, and I will calculate the optimal grid parameters. So it will work. Well, this is a lot of data, so it's not getting this. Probably need to change the limit, but the problem is that it's taking a lot of like tokens, and the LLM can process that amount of tokens. So I will probably need to get less time. But well, it's getting like 15 minutes candles. Is the same that I'm getting here. Let me see this in 1 second if it's moving or not. Yeah, it's moving a little bit. How is this? Oh, okay, it has good movement. It's calculating the optimal grid parameters and calculating the grid strike config, whatever. It will place a long. Okay. It created the Sapien grid long, so it already created the configuration. I don't know if it's going to work off the shelf. Maybe it has to iterate a little bit, but we are going to try it and see if it's going to provide us good results or not. Let's see. I had things that I don't like here. For example, I would say I want to have the take profit in 0.00 like this percentage. Then also the mean amount quotes has to be $6, I would like, and the total amount quote has to be 300, let's say. Leverage 50. Okay, I will say this, so you can modify the controller config to have that. So now we're going to see it. After coding with LLMs for 6 months, I will never give unlimited access to any financial unlimited destructive action. Yeah, I don't know what you refer about like unlimited destructive action, but usually you need to accept all the things that you want. So, and I think that it's not like a big deal what it can do. basically you will trade, or if you ask for it. So it's not going to be like unlimited access. You can always it's like the tools, they have something that you can either accept all the tool by default, like you can give full access to accept, or you need to confirm before each action. In this setup, I just said that I don't want to confirm. I'm just saying like execute whatever you want. But the default behavior is that you need to accept all the actions that the LLM will take. Some of them you can whitelist and say you can use this without problems, and there are others that you can say for using this action I will need to accept the action. The actions that are like more complex are the ones that are like sending trades. That's the only thing that might be unlimited destructive, but I don't think that it can do a bunch of stuff. Before BC says, same issue with Hummingbot API MCP. It works fine for me when I work on high liquid tokens like BTC, but if I use this in a token with significantly less liquidity and high spread, orders shift the mid price. Yeah, for that you will need to provide like an example of what are the tokens that you are using, and I can just see it and help you understanding why that happens. But yeah, remember that the strategies, if you want to use a strategy that for a liquid token will be very different from a strategy from a liquid token. Usually those are designed for liquid tokens. But yeah, in the case that you are trading on an liquid token, probably what I recommend to run is cross-exchange market making and hedge on an LP pool. That will be probably the most smart thing to do there. So yeah. Well, it created the config, so we can see it. If we go to here to the Hummingbot API, this config of Sapien should be here. As you can see, it defined the end price, the max open orders, the minimum quote, well, all this stuff is defined here. So it created the config for us without issues. Now let's say that we will say, okay, let's go back to this terminal, and let's say to this, now can you deploy that bot with master account? So in that case, I'm saying after I created the config, I'm saying deploy that bot. It will say, okay, I will use a tool of deploy bots. You say bot deployed successfully. So, okay, it's running the bot. So, well, as you can see, we were able to create the config and deploy the bot. So, yeah, basically, it's going to let you either trade automatically or deploy it's saying you deploy a bot and run the bot with the config that you want, or help you doing manual trades as you want. Hallucinated LLM. Oh, I'm sorry, I multiply your short by 50x because you have 6. Yeah, well, that's what Sue is mentioning is something that the LLM can have, like hallucinations, but that's the whole point of MCP. Is like if you are defining very well the instructions, the LLM should not hallucinate. Is what the MCP is going to do, right? So if you see here, all these instructions are used to avoid hallucinations. It's like the hallucination happens when it does not have context or information, real information about what the task should be, and it will try to predict what the hell can be something that fits into that. But once you have a detailed instructions on how to use that, it will work well. I didn't find, it's like I tested to trade a lot with it already, and it never failed like in what I asked for. Let me show you, for example, the ones that is like for place an order. Place an order. It has all the information. It knows how the order amount is always in base currency. If you want to use USD values and add the dollar sign. So, and inside this, I have a lot of like code reviewing or executing this stuff. So I think that I disagree that it can hallucinate that bad. And also you always see the arguments that it's going to use before calling the tool. So I think that it's not a big problem. That one. So yeah. Well, the grid is still running. I think that if we go to the dashboard in instances, yeah, we can also see the bot here, because the dashboard takes all the bots that are running also. You can see the logs of the bot here. The MCP also can access to the logs. So I can say, what's the status of my bot? And it will help you getting the status of the bot. Yeah, it's like you can now even get the status of the bots that you have running. So well, that's basically a brief introduction of what you can actually build or how you can actually use Hummingbot API without needing a UI. In this case, as you can see, we are just using the MCP to interact with Hummingbot API, and it's having a decent performance. So, well, I don't know if there is any other question out there, or you want to see another thing being performed. I can also say, cool, now stop the bot. I'm saying, okay, now stop the bot. Let's see how it works. It has 3 active orders. Stop the bot. Stop archive started. So we should see that the longs are stopped. Yeah, perfect. The longs were removed. The bot is stopped. So yeah, if we refresh this, we'll probably see. Okay, you see it stopped the bot, it archived the bot. So if we go to the backend API here, if we go to archive bots, we should see Sapien. You see Sapien grid bot is here. So well, basically it's very robust. Like all the workflows are like very solid. We are constantly testing because this is the first iteration of the MCP. So David, for example, is testing this in Gemini. I tested on Claude, and Claude, well, is very good like for everything. So it does not fail. But well, it's like it's matter of testing and seeing like what's the best, or how we can take the best advantage of the AI when trying this. I think that a very good like idea would be like creating like a workflow where you with a script you process some data, like I don't know, volatility or whatever, and then based on those metrics you let the AI decide what market to trade, and based on that decide the configuration and deploys the config for you, and every, I don't know, 2 hours reviews the performance, reviews the metrics again, and decides if it has to stop a bot and restart another one. Maybe that will be like an interesting use case that we can work next week to do something like, I don't know, 100% automatic. But well, if there is no more questions, I will just call it a day for today, and we'll be ready for next week to do something on more cool on the AI side. So any other question? This, I think that it will go up, so I will probably close the long. Sorry, no, it's a short. How much went up? Like 20% in the last hour. Nice. Okay, well, if there is no more things, I will just close it. So, well, bye bye. Have a great weekend. That's a very good question, Linux. You can use N8N with Hummingbot because now we have the MCP, so N8N can connect to the MCP, and you can directly use it. But maybe I can also create like we can also create like an N8N component. That would be probably very massive for Hummingbot, because a lot of people can use N8N, and we can expose like the basic buy, sell, cancel, replace, or whatever. So that might be a great idea. If there are people interested on that, we can definitely do it. But if you want to use it N8N with AI and this MCP, you can connect this MCP as part of N8N. So yeah, you can do it. So well, see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.